Now some asshole said, say no to drugs. Now that doesn't stop anything. You don't say no to drugs. Like say, it's like taking a Southern and say, stop speaking with a Southern accent. You know, you can't. And a person that's brought up in a given country, you say, thinks a certain way, the way they wanted you to think. That's what they bring you up. They bring you up to sing America the Beautiful, all those Pledge Allegiance to the flag. So when I was about 13 or 14, I refused to pledge allegiance to the flag. The teacher did not ask me any questions, grabbed me by the ear right to the principal's office. And the principal said to the teacher, you're excused. And he said to me, he put his arm around me. He said, why don't you want to pledge allegiance? Everybody does. I said, everybody wants to believe the earth was flat. That doesn't make it flat. So he said, well, what do you think of American history? Strictly BS, bad science. So he said, what do you mean? Everybody in the history books does the right thing. They always have the right thing to say, they look right, they behave correctly, all through the years, never make any mistakes, never apologize for anything. I said, there's no such people as I read about in history books. Besides, all history is written. If the Germans won the war, they've shown pictures of chain gangs in America, you know, all the things that you don't know about, all the corruption you don't know about. And if we win, if the Japanese won the war, you have another movie, another history book that's different. So if people say to me, what do you really like? I say, you ask 20 different people, you get 20 different images. I can't write an autobiography on myself because I would be biased in terms of my own background. Anyway, he didn't disagree with me. When my mother came in weeping, and she said, what did he do? He didn't do anything, the principal said. We have no place for him in our school. She says, oh my God, you mean he's going to be kicked out of school? The principal said, no, I'm going to take him to a bookstore and buy the books he wants to read. He doesn't like the crap he's been given when he was a kid, like Dickie Dare and the Sheep, I don't know if any had. On the way, met a cow, moo said the cow. Kids, Jack and the Beanstalk and Cinderella, touches a rat, becomes a white horse. You fill their heads with crap first. Then you say, now sing, we are free. Anyway, they're all controlled. And anyway, it's a bad control, it's terrible. So what happened, the principal did, he took me to Macy's and bought me books I wanted. And the books I wanted was Mind in the Making by James Harvey Robinson, old book. And it's how we get to be the way we are. I didn't want the school books, they didn't tell me anything. They just told me about history, which was a batch of lies. And all the reasons for us going to war, a batch of lies, propaganda. And the language we learned was an old language, which you couldn't talk much about things. And there was a language I read as a kid called Language and Thought and Action by Hayakawa. How many have ever heard of it? Science and Sanity by Alfred Korzybski. Tyranny of Words by Stuart Chase. They're all on our website. You can get those books. I think you can.
I'm going through your book list and reading them. I'm just on why people believe weird things.
Are you getting anything out of it?
Yeah, it's awesome. Michael Sherman's Why People Believe Weird Things. That's what I'm reading right now.
Good. Now, most of those books are not available. There's a society in America called the Heritage Foundation. And they believe they're good citizens, and they go through the library and take out books, have books removed by government pressure, or local pressure that they feel might be disturbing. You don't like that?
No, it's
terrible. I think. Now, the book called 100 Million Guinea Pigs exposed the drug industry. And the public, it was a bestseller in America years ago, and the public demanded that we build an organization in Washington called the Pure Food and Drug Administration. They will investigate all drugs to make sure they're okay. Now, it's peopled by the people of the drug industry. Do you understand that? That always happens. Okay? Now the Air Force or the Pentagon in Washington, they say they're there to prevent our country from being attacked. They're there to defend our country. We gave them radar and everything in Hawaii. And the soldiers detected the enemy planes coming over. The GIs with their radar. They took it to a captain and said, we detect a flight of planes coming toward Hawaii. The captain says, probably our planes. Just during the hostile times. And then they overlooked that. So the radar served no purpose. Then they thought of building a defense system in Canada, the Dune Line they called it, where the Russian planes, if they came over, we'd have stuff over there. Well, if you had stuff over there, I can assure you the Russians wouldn't come over that way. You know, military thinking is based upon your kind of training you get. So the Arabs didn't have access to weapons, so they hijacked a plane. And they flew into the Trade Center. Does anybody ever know why North Korea and China are building armies and nuclear weapons? Does anybody know why? If you don't mind, there's a headline, Roger, will you get it for me? That you've never seen, and most Americans haven't seen it. We ran this in England, this headline. Thank you, Roger. If you can't see it, I'll pass it around. It says, would you mind somebody read that loud?
The U.S. plans for first strike nuclear attacks against 7 countries.
And it names them. North Korea, China, it names them. What do you expect them to do?
Defend themselves.
How many of you knew this? Will you show me your hand? How many of you knew this headline? You knew it? Where did you find out?
I live in Australia. We have things like that in Australia as well.
He said he lives
Australia,
in Australia. Yeah. Jack's hard of hearing.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. All right, so this is why they're doing it. Now, how can we build so much hatred in the people that they fly planes into a building? We've never heard their side of the story. I'm not pro their side of the story. I'm against all separate nations. But they all lie, all of them. And they all, the Pentagon released that. Even if you intended to bomb them, don't release that. That's another dumb thing they did. So, everything that happens, there's a book called The Secrets of Pearl Harbor. The foreword is written by Admiral Halsey, well known, liked by everyone. How we got the Japanese to attack Pearl Harbor. That's what that book's about. I can't even find it. You might find it on the internet. The internet is the last straw. It's the greatest liberator of human beings ever invented. But they love to control it. If you ever gain control of the internet, you can kiss your ass goodbye. So, I want to say that children are so warped by this culture. And I want to give you another example of that, but I want to get back to the principle. He got me these books, and he roped off the back of the class, and I was able to read that. But I was beaten up by the other students, not all of them, some of them, because I resented that privilege. But that went on for 1.5 years, and he died. And they cut out that privilege. So I played hooky for 6 weeks. But when I came home one day, I looked like I was going to school. I came out with the books, but I never went to school. And the tour officer is sitting on my doorstep. He's the guy that makes sure kids go to school. So I said, Jacque, you haven't been to school for a month. I said, 6 weeks. He said, that's right. He said, what do you do when you're not in school? I said, I go to the science museum, I go to the library and read what I want to read. He said, what do you do at home? I said, I have a little lab. He says, can I see it? I said, under condition you don't tell my mother who you are. He agreed. He saw the lab and what I was doing he found interesting. He said, I can't tell you what to do as long as you're not hanging out in gangs and doing awful things in his face. He says, I can't tell you what to do, but you can do me a favor. I would appreciate it if you show up Monday, then you can play hooky from then on, as long as I've done my job. So of course I showed up Monday. From then on I never went back to school. Because airplanes dropped pamphlets just during the Depression.